Okay, I know what you're thinking. Isn't the Lunaverse usually set after the latest live read I do at any given moment? Well, technically, yeah. That's how it normally goes. But as you know, we've got a little Christmas marathon going on over at the main fix. And I took a look at the schedule and realized that if I were to do my usual Lunaverse, main fic, I wouldn't have time to get to all the Christmas stories that I want to do. So instead, what I'm going to do is for the next few weeks, I am going to do a live read of some of the other Lunaverse chapters that I won't be getting to that I would have done if I weren't doing this normally. It is also so not just because you have a certain fanfic you want to get to and a certain episode that you've been dying to do. Trixie? No. But still, we are going to do this. Still, I think the best way to do it would be this Saturday and Sunday, for the past few days, we're going to look at some of the other fanfics and do the episodes then. So that means episodes 7, 8, and 9 will be Saturday, Sunday for the next few weeks. And then we'll get back to the regular schedule after that. So, without further ado, here's the next episode of the Lunaverse. Boast Busted. Oh, and if anybody wants a trailer, here's what I would have put in. Ahem. Finally, after all this time, the Evening Time Festival has arrived! And now it is time for all of you to see what the great and powerful Trixie can finally do! Really? You are a Luna student, and who are you? And this is the best you've got? Excuse me? I mean, really now? You could do so much better! Why can't you be better? Just who are you? The name is Twilight Sparkle. Next time on the Lunaverse. Boast Busted. The Lunaverse. Concept by Rainbow Double Dash. Episode 7. Boast Busted. By Rainbow Double Dash. Episode 1. Chapter 1. The show must go on. Pilot episode. Trixie used her forelegs to blow her horn. Now, you will note that my horn does not glow, she said as she took off her cape and held it up like she was facing a charging bull. With a flourish, she swung the cape around and clasped it on the back of her neck. But more importantly, the section of the stage that the cape had been obscuring for the audience's view, which had once been empty, now had a table on it. Loaded down with various trinkets and sundries, it had appeared from seemingly nowhere, all despite Trixie's horn not glowing. She heard an appreciative hoof stomp from the crowd. For my next tricks, the great and powerful Trixie will require a volunteer for the audience. There was a long, pregnant silence. The elevated magic's eyes narrowed somewhat as he took a few steps forward. Lyra, that means you, she informed her friend. The mint green unicorn stared back at Trixie, blinking a few times. Me? She asked. You, Trixie confirmed. Why not somebody else? Trixie tapped her forward hoof on the table impatiently. Because there is no pony else, she reminded the pony, using a hoof to gesture to an otherwise empty auditorium Trixie was practicing in. You are my test audience, meaning you're my audience volunteer. Lyra heartstrings blinked a few times. Her host absently mindedly plucking a few notes on her lyre, as he laughed nervously. Well, yeah. You can't still be mad at me for turning you into— No! Lyra interrupted quickly. She looked at her front hooves. No, I'm over it. But I don't want it to happen again. Somehow, her tone of voice seemed to suggest that she was trying to convince herself of that fact more than Trixie. Trixie whickered a little in impatience. Well, I promise you that's not going to happen. This is all sleight of hoof, smoke and mirrors, a little telekinesis, but that's it. Lyra let out a sigh, setting down her lyre and trotting up to the stage. Trixie smiled, falling back into character. What a brave volunteer! She exclaimed. Wait, brave? Lyra asked as she reached Trixie's side. Why do I have to be brave? Hush! Trixie responded. With a flourish of her cape, she trotted over to her table and selected a deck of oversized playing cards. With another overly dramatic moment, she used her telekinesis to spread the selection of 52 cards before Lyra. Pick a card. she commanded, echoing countless messages before her. Any card. Show the audience, but do not show the great and powerful Trixie. She turned away, while pulling her hose to her head, as though she were focusing on some deep mystery of the universe. So what? I just sold this to an empty auditorium? Lyra asked from behind Trixie. It's not empty. It's full of hundreds of adoring fans, Trixie exclaimed. After a moment she added, but yes, tell me when you're done. A few seconds later, Lyra confirmed that she had done as the other unicorn had asked. Trixie grinned, using her telekinesis to shuffle the cards together without looking. Then, turning around, all right, she said, placing the cards on top of Lyra's head and smiling as she did so, balancing them with magic. Behind her, she drew her next item in front of the table with telekinesis. A long, thin stiletto. Lyra attempted, as Trixie turned to her with a maniacal grin. What are you? Now, hold very still, my brave volunteer, Trixie exclaimed as she flourished the knife for her imaginary eyes. The great and powerful Trixie is completely insane if you're planning on doing what I think you're doing, Lyra exclaimed, eyes wide, as she looked between the knife and the cards balanced on her head. Trixie groaned. Oh, come on, Lyra, Trixie tried. The show is always so much greater when it looks like somebody's life is at stake. No, I practiced this 100. No, you're not really. No! Trixie sighed. Fine, she said. We'll do this the boring way. Toss the cards high into the air. The element of loyalty grasped the cards into her own golden-hued telekinora, and did so. With a sigh, Trixie watched them fall, before picking out one and throwing her stiletto point first at it. The knife flew straight and true through the center of the card, and flew forward before embedding itself into an inch into the wooden wall. Trixie's telekinesis reached out and grabbed the stiletto, and the card it had impaled, keeping it face down and away from Lyra, Trixie, and the audience. Now, my dull and uninteresting volunteer, Trixie said, before holding up the oversized card at such an angle that Lyra and the audience could see it, but still not Trixie. Tell the great and powerful Trixie, was this your card? Lyra stared at it. That could have been my head, she pointed out. Yes. Your best friend nearly killed you. It happens. Now, was this card yours? Lyra blinked a few times. I think. Trixie turned to stare at Lyra. The impaled two of hearts that the great unicorn had selected. You think? She demanded. I don't know. Nearly being stabbed to death kind of makes me forget the small things. Trixie let out a small sigh. The answer is yes, Lyra. This was your card. You sure? Pretty sure, but not totally sure. Trixie groaned. For my next trick. My little pony, ah, my little pony, friendship never meant that much to me, my little pony, but now you're all here and now I can see. Stormy weather, lost to share, a musical bond, left all in gear, teaching laughter, it's an easy feat, and magic makes it all complete. You have my little ponies. How did I ever make so many true friends? You are watching Rainbow Double Dash's Lunaverse, only on the Hub. It can happen, only on the Hub. Concept by Rainbow Double Dash. Live read by Martial Art Fruit User. To be fair to Lyra, raindrops called down to Trixie as she used her wings to disperse the last of the clouds in her section of the sky, floating over a hill that looked upon Ponyville. You did turn her into... Okay, first, Trixie interrupted, holding up a hoof to stop the Jasmine-colored Pegasus. That was an accident. Second, it wasn't permanent. 3, that was a spell gone awry. It wasn't part of my magic act. She sat back on her haunches, crossed her hose in front of her. All I'm asking is for a little trust, that's all. Raindrops groaned as she let herself drift down to Trixie. Do not get me started on trust, she moaned, lying down on her stomach and letting out a long sigh. She was breathing heavily from hours of practically working her hose down to the quick. Trixie stared. Rainbow Dash again, she asked. Raindrops waved a hoof, as though it would have been obvious. I don't understand how she's the team manager still, the blue unicorn admitted. Well, Raindrops said, rolling onto her back, when she finally does get around to actually working, I don't think there's anyone in the Equestria who can clear a sky faster. I've seen her clear an entire sky full of clouds in 10 seconds flat. Plus, She always gets the weather schedule right, up and on time. Somehow. Yeah, but what use is that if she's always giving off? Should she really be the manager? Yelvin honestly waved to Hoof again as she closed her eyes, yawning. No, she confirmed after a moment. But that's what we're stuck with. You could be the weather manager. Ha! And Strange Arts exclaimed without opening her eyes. No, I'm serious. So am I. It's not happening. I have enough to work hard enough with as is. Trixie supposed she could understand that. With Rainbow Dash, a giant Pegasus with a rainbow-hued mane and tail, constantly either sleeping in or practicing tricks to try and get into the Wonderbolts, Raindrops was practically the manager for Ponyville already, aside from writing up the weather schedule. Trixie settled down onto her stomach next to her friend. Watson asked mindedly as he spotted a lavender unicorn that was pulling a large wagon laden with, from the looks of things, books! Heading into Ponyville. Probably another traveler looking to come to Ponyville's Eventime Festival, celebrating the time in spring when the day and night were exactly the same length. Speaking of which, you'll be at the Eventime Festival tonight, right? Trixie added. And a nod from Raindrops. Trixie continued. Will you be coming to my magic show? Wouldn't miss it. Raindrops promised, opening one eye. I just hope it goes better than the last time we tried to have a celebration here. Trixie grimaced at the reminder, glancing nervously up at the sun as she did so, despite knowing that this was still silly, as Corona wasn't in the sun. Not anymore, anyway. I'm sure it will, she said. It's been only a few months. Princess Luna said the Corona would need a long time to recover. Yeah, well, let's hope so, Raindrops said, closing her eyes. Trixie had discovered at an early age that she had the opposite of stage fright. She loved to be in front of the adoring crowd, loved having all eyes on her, loved trying to both meet and challenge the judging eyes of an audience. She was an extrovert in the extreme. Nothing made her happier than a captive audience. Especially if that captive audience was 9/10 a collection of fillies and colts. Those two special groups of ponies tended to look at Trixie, bedeckled in her cape and hat, and reach two conclusions. One, she was a musician, and two, that made her completely trustworthy while she was on stage, even if she was brandishing a knife at them. Ha! Trixie exclaimed, as he drew back the stiletto from the colt's head with telekinesis. Her knife only had poked a single card, the one on top, but when she saw the look on the colt's face, she knew she had succeeded without even asking. Nevertheless, she slid the stiletto from the card and held it up high with magic, so that both the audience and the colt archer could see it. Tell me, my brave little pony, Trixie said, rearing up on her hind legs and gesturing to the 5 of diamonds. Was this your card? Yes! The colt exclaimed in surprise. Trixie could see his mind turning, trying to figure out how she performed her magic trick, coming up with nothing. Trixie pulled her magician's hat to her eyes and bowed to the enthusiastic co-stars of her captive audience. Then encouraged Archer to bow as well. Was there any doubt? Trixie asked. To which he got an enthusiastic no in response. So far, the evening time celebration was going wonderfully. Starting a few hours ago, Princess Luna had begun lowering the sun below the horizon. The town center of Ponyville had quickly filled up with stalls and vendors and sights to be seen. By far, the largest of the food vending stalls still belonged to the Apple clan. Trixie suppressed a scowl at the thought as she remembered how that family, or at least Applejack, their nominal lead, had acted during the longest night celebration. But other families and businesses had representation as well, most importantly for Trixie. Carrot Top, another of the Blue Unicorn's friends, was definitely befitting having taken part in saving all of Equestria some months back. With that act came recognition, and with recognition came carrot sales for the struggling farmer. Trixie began setting up her stage about an hour before the sun had fully set, in full view of the town, and with the setup practically a show unto itself. When her show had actually begun, she already had a large crowd of fillies and colts, and their parents eagerly waiting for her to begin. That had been about 2 hours ago now, and her show was beginning to wind down. She had one last trick, if it was a doozy. Trixie forced herself back to the here and now, as she gently shooed Archer from the stage, then looked back to the audience and took off her hat, setting off a series of small fireworks and streamers by stopping her hoof on the proper location on her stage, while simultaneously making absolutely sure that the pony saw that her horn wasn't glowing. Trixie will require another volunteer for her next, final, astounding demonstration. Dozens of hooves shot up into the air. Sometimes a couple of which belonged to the same pony. Trixie made a show of trying to decide, before picking her inevitable, chosen before the show even began, choice. You! She exclaimed, pointing to a gray-coated unicorn filly with a blonde mane, named Dinky Doo. The unicorn put on a good show, showing surprise that he had been chosen, and quickly made her way up onto the stage. Once there, she waved back at her mother, Dizzy Doo, a Pegasus with silver coat and mane colorings. Is that your mother? Trixie asked in her show voice, despite knowing the answer. Dickie nodded furiously and put her in her mouth, looking deeply concerned. Oh, I don't know, she said as a part of well-rehearsed script with Dinky, as he slipped her hat back on. I know your mother, and if this trick goes poorly, she might have some strong words for the great and powerful Trixie. I'm not afraid, Dinky proclaimed loudly. Well, of course not. You're still here, Trixie said, as he took off and swung her cape over a great forest. But not for long! She passed her cape over Dinky and stepped before the filly, even as the gray unicorn made use of a spring-loaded trapdoor ready and waiting for her. By the time Trixie once more put her cape around her neck, barely a second later, Dinky was nowhere to be found. Dizzy stood into the air, with false look panic on her face. My muffin! She exclaimed, till one of her eyes winked at Trixie. Not to worry, Dinky Doo, Trixie said, holding up her hooves. She's all right. Probably, Trixie added slyly. She turned to the spot where Dinky had disappeared and started waving her hose in an arcing manner. Alakazam, she intoned. Alakazoo, come back, Dinky Doo! There was a puff of smoke from the stage, but when it cleared, Dinky Doo was nowhere to be seen. Trixie opened her mouth to voice a false concern. This show called for Trixie to look worried that Dinky was lost forever. But she was suddenly interrupted from a voice originating in the rear of the crowd. This isn't magic! The voice exclaimed. Trixie blinked a few times, glancing out to the audience. There, in the very back, was a lavender-coated unicorn with a dark blue mane and tail, each of which had a single pink and purple stripe running through them. She looked angry and disappointed. Why was she disappointed? Trixie recognized the mare in a moment. It was the same one that she had seen coming into Ponyville earlier, but she couldn't help but think she knew the mare from somewhere else as well. The blue unicorn returned to regard the lavender one. Oh, she asked. Is there a naysayer in the audience? Trixie asked. Somebody who doubts the astounding skills of the great and powerful Trixie. The lavender unicorn looked ready to speak again, when she seemed suddenly to be full aware of all eyes in the audience upon her, with a lot of fillies and colts looking very annoyed at the show being interrupted. Almost as annoyed as Trixie herself. She lowered her head in a gesture of apology. Sorry, she mouthed. Trixie turned back to the stage, putting her hoof to her mouth, and repeating the phrase, the show must go on, over and over in her head. Now then, where was I? She wondered. Ah, yes, saving Dinky Doo from the ravages of the fifth dimension! There was a slight delay before Dizzy Doo remembered her line. Ravages? Asked the element of kindness, eyes wide. She put a hoof to her head and pretended to faint dead away, though the speed of her fall, and the fact that she caught herself, clearly showed that this was all an act to anyone looking at her. Not to worry, Trixie exclaimed, taking off her hat and cape entirely. Though it will take all of my power, I will save Dinky! She flicked her mane, releasing a small capsule hidden there, and setting off a smoke bomb that had scared the stage, allowing her to slip down the very set trap door that Dinky had. It was a tight fit, but she easily found the filly sitting at the far end of under the stage, waiting next to step a ladder, which would take her up behind the curtain. Mama isn't worried, is she? Dinky asked, a look of deep concern on her large eyes. Is that why you took longer than you said to get here? Not at all, kiddo, Trixie assured the fold, as the two climbed up on the step ladder behind the stage. Just a little problem with some pony trying to ruin the show. She trotted up to a specially placed hole in the curtain, horn glowing, while her cutie mark, a blue nebula with a star-tipped magic wand overlaying it, showed that her special talent was magic in general. Trixie had always felt comfortable with illusion spells. On stage, just as the fillies and colts of the crown were beginning to look concerned, a large circle, 10 feet in diameter, began to form in mid-air, standing vertically. Once the circle was finished, 5 lines shot around inside it, forming a star. and then the points of the star were connected by a pentagon. With a flash, the arcane mark seemed to collapse in on itself, revealing to its other side what the audience looked like, a dark and desolate world, all twisted with barren rock, starlit sky. Trixie grimaced a little as she made the glamour even more complicated. An illusion of herself appeared on the other side of the portal to the fifth dimension, climbing over a rock face, carrying Dinky Doo on her back. The illusory copy made a mad dash for the portal. At length, Trixie added a final touch. A horrific, green-scaled monster, like a cross between a dragon and a centipede, came into view. Nostrils exhaling starry smoke and eyes burning with cold fire and hate. Trixie put a last bit of magic into her illusion, willing to keep existing and playing until she and Dinky passed through it. There were cries of surprise and a little fear from the audience, but by far what Trixie and Dinky Doo heard most was cries of excitement and encouragement for Trixie to keep running. The blue unicorn got down on her stomach. "Okay, 15 seconds," Trixie said as Dinky climbed onto her back. "Ooh, what's it like to be on stage?" "Great," Dinky says, smiling. "I love it." "Okay, but you have to look worried," Trixie instructed the unicorn, feeling. "Remember, there's a monster chasing you, trying to gobble you up." Dinky laughed for a moment. Before a look of comic fright appeared on her face. She was clearly having a hard time holding it. But then again, her back would be largely turned from the audience for the finale. Trixie backed up a few steps, before charging forward, leaping straight through her illusory portal, just as her copy of the illusion seemed to be doing so. She landed, skidding, but on her 4 feet, turning quickly to the portal as Dinky Doo slid off her back. "Oh no!" Dinky exclaimed loudly, doing her best to sound serious. "The portal's still open! The monster's going to get us!" "Not to worry," Trixie said as she reared up on her hind legs, pushing Dinky behind her and gesturing to the portal. "Abracadabra! Alakazam!" Trixie threw her hose forward. Lightning appeared to shoot from them, and her horn at the portal, just as the horrific monster on the other side reached it. With a loud pop, the illusion disappeared, though not before the monster on the other side let out a howl of rage. Dinky made a show of panting heavily, while Trixie actually was. Maintaining such a complicated illusion for even so short of an amount of time was hard work. The two turned to the audience and found them silent, eyes wide. It was the kind of silence Trixie knew too well at this point, however, and she wasn't worried, nor was she surprised when the audience burst out into whoops, tears, and hoof stomps. Trixie refilled her hat and cape from the stage and bowed deeply, while Dinky tried to, but found herself quickly being scooped up by a gray blur as her mother flew up on stage and collected the filly in a tight hug. "Fillies and tentacles, you have been a wonderful audience!" Trixie proclaimed with another deep bow. "This is the end of the great and powerful Trixie show! Enjoy the rest of the Eventime festival!" There was a slight booze from the crowd, but they were boos of a crowd that wished the show hadn't needed to end, rather than that of a dissatisfied crowd. The kind of boos that a performer longed for, rather than feared. There was one exception. The lavender unicorn still sat in the back of a crowd, staring at Trixie. Her look of disappointment hadn't disappeared. Though she wasn't booing and making her displeasure otherwise known, she wasn't cheering or even giving a polite hoof stomp. Trixie chose to ignore her, and gave a final bow before disappearing backstage. She was quickly joined by Dinky Doo, who had Dinky riding on her back. "That was amazing, Trixie," Dinky said, smiling widely. She was just as excited as her filly, if her eyes were anything to go by. Dinky Doo had wandering eyes. With focus and effort, she could make her eyes look in one direction, but in her normal state, especially if she was excited or distracted, her eyes had a tendency to drift apart, each looking outwards. It had been a difficult thing to get used to, mostly due to Trixie not being sure which side to look onto when the Pegasus was talking to, when she first met the male mare and dedicated mother. But over the past few months, she'd been able to overcome the issue and look at the bridge of Dinky Doo's nose. "Thanks," Trixie responded. She took her off her hat and shook her mane. She looked at Dinky Doo. "And I owe you, my excellent assistant, a whole tray of muffins." She paused and frowned. "Though you seem to always be eating them. Are you sure you don't want, I don't know, cake or something else?" Dinky emphatically shook her head. "Nope," she announced with utter confidence. "Okay," Trixie said, smiling as she looked at Dinky Doo. "And thanks for letting me borrow your filly and send her to the fifth dimension." also known as under the stage, Dizzy said with a laugh, tapping her rear hoof on the wooden planks under her. Trixie winced slightly. Dizzy was strong, and sometimes stronger than she realized, but the stage didn't give out under them. Can't wait for the next show, Trixie. Can Dicky be in that one too? Of course, Trixie promised, with a wink at the filly sitting on top of Dizzy too. All sorcerers need an insensate. But you're not a sorcerer. Trixie, Dizzy, and Dicky all blinked at the new voice. Trixie looked past the two gray-coated ponies into the stage curtains, where a new pony had entered. The lavender-coated unicorn that had interrupted Trixie's magic act. The look of disappointment and a bit of annoyance still plastered her face. Yee! Dicky too adjusted, raising her right hoof as she made her point. You can't come backstage. Trixie told me only performers are allowed on backstage, and performers love us. Dizzy's wings fluttered as she moved to Trixie. Do you know her? She asked. Trixie blinked. She did know that this lavender unicorn came from somewhere, but for the life of her she couldn't remember where. She decided to shake her head. Not off the top of my head, no, she said. She took a step towards the mare that seemed determined to ruin her evening time. Look, I've just had a long show, and the evening time festival is waiting, so whatever your problem is, can't it wait? The lavender unicorn scuffed a hoof on the stage beneath her. No, it really can't, she said. And I came here all the way from Manhattan to see you and talk to you, Trixie Moon. Trixie winced at the usage of her second name. She hated it, with a fiery passion that Corona herself could have envied. Just Trixie, she insisted. And what do you want to talk to me about? Was it really so bad that you felt the need to interrupt my show? Yes, the unicorn said firmly. See, I've been wandering around Equestria, learning everything I can about magic. Magic's my special talent, she said, trying to side somewhat to display her on flank. Her cutie mark, a 6-pointed star, is surrounded by 5 white stars. So when I heard a few months back that Corona had escaped her imprisonment in the sun, but was then driven off by the elements of harmony, directed by a unicorn whose special talent was also magic, and even preferred the element of magic, and who had been Luna's personal apprentice, I had to come to Ponyville to meet you. She sat back on her haunches, an arch look on her face. And I've got to say, I'm not impressed. Trixie glared at the lavender unicorn. Who are you? She demanded. The lavender unicorn put a hoof to her chest in pride. I'm Twilight Sparkle. Chapter 2. Wearing raindrops keeps a promise. Something clicked in Trixie's mind. Oh! She realized. Oh, I remember now. You're the mayor that graduated from Princess Luna's School of Magic a year early, and with a perfect grade point average. Twilight Sparkle beamed at the recognition. Yes, she confirmed. Princess Luna herself handed me my diploma. Trixie considered. Vaguely remember attending that event alongside her mentor. And since then, you've just been wandering around Equestria looking for festivals to ruin? She surmised. The lavender unicorn seemed taken aback. What? She asked. Trixie moved closer to Twilight. You interrupted my show! She exclaimed. Oh, that, Twilight said, laughing nervously and looking a little mollified, before realizing what she was doing. Shaking her head and looking back to Trixie. Well, that was only because I couldn't take it anymore! I came here all the way from Manhattan, dropped everything I was researching in the library there, just to see you, and you were hardly doing any magic at all out there! Dicky Doo objected, hopping off her mother's back and galloping past Trixie and right out of Twilight. I backed up a few paces at the charts, and the look of determination in Dicky's face. Trixie's the best magician all Equestria! Twilight blinked a few times as he stared down at the filly. Her expression changed to one of slight condensation. Now, look, my little pony, she said in a voice that matched her expression, leaning down to Dinky. You're too young to really know this, but what Trixie was doing was not magic. Yes, it was! Dinky attempted strongly. Trixie says that magic is more than just spells and stuff. It's all about style and presentation, and I'm not too young to know, because Mama says I'm really smart for my age, and... Thank you, Dinky, Trixie said, using a hoof to gently push the filly away from the unicorn. But I think Twilight and I need to have a discussion in private. Dinky looked at Justin. But I thought I was your assistant. You are, Trixie promised. But I don't know how this discussion is going to play out. It might involve some mean words that even a filly as smart as you shouldn't be hearing. And frankly, I'm scared of what your mother might do to me if you did hear them. Dixie chuckled somewhat as she came forward, scooping her daughter and placing her firmly on her back again. You gonna be alright? She asked. Somehow, her mind had managed to wander so that one was on Trixie, while the other focused on Twilight. The lavender unicorn didn't seem bothered at all by Dixie's eyes, however, which at least made Trixie's estimation of her go up, however slightly. I'll be fine, Trixie promised. Before looking back at Twilight, Dixie nodded and headed to the stage's curtains, a somewhat morose-looking Dinky-Doo riding her, though the filly spared enough time to turn around and stuck her tongue out at Twilight. Twilight stared impassively at this display. Never was good with fools, she observed absent-mindedly. Maybe if you didn't talk down to them like you just did, Trixie suggested, as she replaced her hat. Especially Dinky-Doo. She is very smart for her age. Twilight turned back to Trixie. Really? She asked, curiosity piqued. What spells can she cast? Trixie blinked at the question, not understanding how Twilight could have made the leap from smart for her age to spellcasting prodigy. Raw intelligence and spellcasting ability were only peripherally connected, and unicorns at Dinky's age were only just beginning to master basic telekinesis. Dinky was about as far along as any other unicorn filly in that regard. Several, but that's not what really matters right now. Why did you interrupt my show? Twilight blinked a few times. Like I said, she explained, you're the element of magic! You were taught by Luna herself! But the spells I saw out there could have been done by a filly her age! She pointed in the direction of Dinky and Dizzy had left. Trixie huffed. Give my portal to the fifth dimension glamour a little more credit. Well, okay, that was impressive, Twilight admitted, scuffing a hoof on the floor. But it's not like illusions are real magic. What? Well, they're not! They're illusions. They're fake by definition. Trixie couldn't believe what she was hearing. Well, what were you expecting? Trixie demanded. I don't know! Twilight exclaimed. Something more! She took a step forward. Does Princess Luna know you're wasting her education like this? Trixie jabbed her hoof forward. For your information, it was Princess Luna who suggested I put on my first magic show back during the longest night celebration, she exclaimed. She encouraged it! She said it was a good use of my talents! Actually, what Princess Luna said it was an excellent way for Trixie to fend her natural egotistical streak and desire for attention in such a way that wouldn't drive other ponies away from her, as she had at that time managed to alienate just about every pony in Canterlot, still wailing to give her a chance. Princess Luna had a way with words, and that way was to make them as blunt and cunning as possible in order to drive the points home. Still, this upstart unicorn didn't need to know that. Twilight stared in incomprehension. The princess wanted you to become a Somare? She demanded. She wants me to be happy, Trixie informed Twilight. That, at least, was the complete and unvarnished truth. Twilight blinked a few times. Okay, she said, apparently deciding to leave that point alone. But why were you doing so little actual magic? I was doing tons of magic, Trixie objected. You were using sleight of hoof, smoke and mirrors, misdirection. There wasn't a lot of real magic. Trixie's eyes narrowed. No, there weren't a lot of spells, she clarified. Magic is more than just spells. But they're the only part that matters, Twilight objected, looking shocked that Trixie could even apply otherwise. No, they're not! Trixie exclaimed with a stomp on her hoof. Spells are just the most obvious, and really the least interesting. Twilight recoiled, as though Trixie had physically bucked her in the jaw while making that point. What? She demanded. You're the element of magic! How could you even say that? I think you answered your own question there, Trixie asserted. I'm the element of magic. I know what I'm talking about. Twilight glared at Trixie. You're wrong. Hey, who between the two of us was taught by magic by Princess Luna herself? Trixie gave Twilight a sly look. Jealous, maybe? Twilight was fuming at the implication. Trixie felt a little bad about the last comment. It was Trixie's habit of name-dropping and bringing her status with Luna that had driven away most of the ponies in Camelot. At least a mixture of that and spells gone awry causing problems. Then again, Trixie had no interest in trying to make friends with this stuck-up mare, and she doubted Twilight had come backstage looking for a renewed sense of camaraderie either. Look, Trixie said, straightening her hat and cape. This is my first evening time festival in Ponyville, and I really want to enjoy it. So, if you'll excuse me. The mayor pushed her way past Twilight and out into the night, trying to focus on the festival in front of her and not the unicorns he was leaving behind. The encounter with Twilight left a bad taste in Trixie's mouth, which, at the very least, made her destination an easy choice. The short one is giving you an evil eye again, see? Raindrops observed, without removing the straw from her mouth. She was glancing over her shoulder at the Apple family stand, which was being mobbed by customers, as usual. Nevertheless, the smallest member of the Apple family seemed to find plenty of time, in between helping her older sister with sales, to shoot dirty looks at Carrot Top's own, which she was scolded for a few times by her sister, but it was never long before the filly started up again. "False a false," Carrot Top responded simply, as he chopped off a carton of carrot juice and exchanged it for a few silver bits with a customer, thanking him for his purchase. His leaving left her alone with Raindrops for the moment. "All that really matters is Applejack realized there's a difference between small business and competition." Raindrops considered as he used her tongue to switch the straw from one side of her mouth to the other. "Never got that," Raindrops said as he took a carrot from Carrot Top's stand, a few bits into the Earth Pony's coffers, before her friend could start up a rant about her not paying the likes he had over its use. "Carrots and apples. Not something you'd think you could compete with together." Carrot Top shrugged. "There's some competition," she explained. "Apple juice or carrot juice? Carrot cake or apple pie? Apple jam or carrot marmalade?" "Ugh, apple jam," Raindrops said, even as he made a point of buying as a carrotsy purchase. "Sorry, C, but apple jam. Carrots should not be made into marmalade." Carrot Top looked around conspiratorially before leading it to Raindrops. "I agree," she said quietly, in a tone of voice that one might have used to say, "I accidentally poisoned the princess." Raindrops chuckled slightly at the tone, and the mortified look on Carrot Top's face at her own words, though her expression fell as another customer came up and bought a raisin and carrot salad, which so far had been proven her most popular item. It had, in fact, nearly sold out. After she left, Raindrops continued the conversation. "Well, at least your evil alliance with the grapes is working out." Carrot Top nodded slightly at that, and she was grateful that it had. Put simply, no pony had a snowball's chance in a volcano of breaking the absolute monopoly that the Apple family had on Ponyville produce. The Apples had the best fields, best equipment, best workers, best everything, and other farmers simply had to make do with what they could get their hooves on. Usually, it was every pony for themselves. But this year, Green Grapes and his family had hit upon the novel idea of, rather than selling his product directly to the public, working in concert with some of the other farmers to create new dishes that incorporate his grapes and splitting the profits, breaking up Ponyville tradition. Carrot Top leapt at the idea, as had several other farmers, and the result was that the raisin and carrot salad was selling so well, along with other dishes. It wasn't going to break the Apple's monopoly on anything, but it was definitely helping the farmers who actually needed the bits. And the Apples didn't, no matter what Applejack seemed to honestly believe. Carrot Top's thoughts continued to present the approach of a blue-coated mare, bedecked in a purple, star-studded hat and cape. "Trixie!" she exclaimed happily, though after a moment her smile drooped as he saw the expression on Trixie's face. "Oh, did the show not go well?" she asked, looking between the unicorn and Raindrops. "No, the show was fine," Trixie responded, as she sat down beside the farmer's stall, looking over the selection. In her telekinetic grasp, there was already a caramel-topped apple, but there was also a small cup of caramel. After a few moments, she telekinetically grabbed a carrot and tossed a few bits into Carrot Top's coffer, like Raindrops, before the Earth Pony could eject and go about her friends not needing to pay. Proceeded to drench the carrot in caramel, bore a hole into the apple, and toss away the core. Lastly, stick the carrot straight through the apple. "Got any salt?" Trixie asked. When Carrot Top shook her head, the show mare sighed a little before it began to eat her odd amalgamation of carrot, apple, and caramel, the mere sight of which drew odd looks from onlookers. Trixie had the most bizarre diet of any pony that Carrot Top had ever met. If the show went fine, how come you want the salt?" "Interruption," Raindrops provided, shifting her straw back to the other mouth. "Some purple unicorn mare with a star cutie mark." There was a pop near the stall, and a sudden stiff breeze from some purple unicorn displacing the thin air. The sudden appearance made Carrot Top jump. Trixie dropped her unholy union of carrot and apple, and raindrops would continue to sip on her carrot juice at a geologically slow pace, while a number of other nearby ponies seemed equally startled by the display. "That's her!" Raindrops said after a moment of making sure she seemed suitably unimpressed. "I'm not jealous!" Trixie blinked at the other unicorn a few times, before looking down at her fallen confection. After a few moments, she headed it off the ground with magic, considering the pieces of grass that came away stuck to it, before taking a tentative bite. After chewing thoughtfully, she seemed satisfied, and pointed a hope to her friends. "Twilight Sparkle, this is Carrot Top, Farmer and Element of Generosity, Raindrops, Weather Pony and Element of Honesty." She shifted her hoof to point to the unicorn. "See, Raindrops, this is Twilight Sparkle, Sorceress and Element of Jealousy." "Oh my, I'm not jealous!" Twilight repeated. I'm disappointed is what I am." Trixie nearly had an outburst herself at that, when she realized that Twilight began to draw a crowd to Carrot Top's stand. She grinned slightly, leaning over to her friends, and held up a hoof as though speaking in confidence to them. Though the volume of her voice had changed. "She's disappointed because there isn't actually an element of honesty." "That's not—" Twilight began, before closing her eyes and trying to ignore Raindrops' snickering. She physically counted to 10. "Look, I'm just trying to understand how a pony, who is supposed to be the element of magic, could have put on a magic show. I expect more from a magic kindergarten filly than some pony who saves the world." "Well, I did save the world. With help," Trixie added quickly, nodding to Raindrops and Carrot Top, before looking back to Twilight. It took Pegasus magic, and Earth Pony magic. Earth Ponies and Pegasi don't have magic!" Trixie suppressed a grin. She hoped to get Twilight to say something stupid. She hadn't expected this. This was beautiful. Carrot Top was taken aback at Twilight's statement, as there were a number of Earth Ponies and Pegasi in that crowd that had been gathering. Twilight seemed to realize her foe's pause. Not that there's anything wrong with that!" she added, looking both mortified and honest as she looked between Carrot Top, who seemed more than shocked and insulted, and Raindrops, who raised one eyebrow half an inch, but otherwise continued sipping her drink at roughly the same rate the contents moved. The Earth Ponies and Pegasi moved in a small crowd. "I mean, Earth Ponies are really good at growing things and are really strong and tough and durable compared to unicorns, and Pegasi can fly and manipulate the weather and other things that unicorns can't—" Twilight blinked when the angry looks didn't go away. "I don't think unicorns are better than anybody else," she said firmly. Trixie, it looked like she honestly meant that, but the damage was done. Twilight came to the same realization moments later. She closed her eyes tightly, horn glowing, and with a pop, she disappeared from view. Trixie took another bite of her confection. The grass really did have a pleasant zest to it, and turned back to her friends, chuckling to herself slightly, as the crowd that had gathered around Carrot Top's stand began dispersing. A few, having their attention drawn to it now, began to form a line. Raindrops was staring at Trixie, with seeing looks he had given Twilight Sparkle. "Hey," she said, "remember after the longest night celebration, when you apologized to every pony for being so condescending, manipulating and stuff, and I told you I hit you hard if you ever acted like it then?" Trixie considered. "Yes?" she asked. "Hold still a moment." Raindrops said as he sat her drink down on Carrot Top's stand and began trotting over to Trixie. The blue unicorn backed away several paces in fright. Raindrops didn't speed up to catch her, but she continued advancing. "Hey!" Trixie objected as he continued backing away, glancing behind her occasionally to make sure she didn't bump into anything or any pony. "What did I do?" Raindrop's rings fluttered a little, so she didn't take to the air. "That," she said, cocking her head over to indicate Carrot Top's stand, "calling that little unicorn the element of jealousy, antagonizing her." "I didn't!" Trixie lied, while considering how to get out of this. Raindrops wasn't fast, especially not by Pegasi standards, but she was relentless, which made it a complete surprise when Raindrops stopped advancing, enough so that Trixie, rather than taking the opportunity to flee, stopped moving at will. "Yeah, you did," the jasmine-colored Pegasus said. "What did you think was going to happen?" Trixie looked down. "She interrupted my show," she pointed out. "Said I wasn't getting good at magic. And now you've got a huge number of ponies thinking she's a tribalist." "She said it! I didn't make her say any of that!" "No, but you were trying to get her to say something stupid," Raindrops said, walking slowly and non-threateningly up to Trixie and touching her forehead's own. Look, Trixie, we both know you got a delicate ego, and maybe Twilight deserved a little embarrassment, but this was too far, by a lot. Trixie let out a long sigh, leaning into her friend's side of affection. Yeah, you're right. She admitted after a moment. I should do that whole apology thing, shouldn't I? Yeah, Raindrops confirmed as he withdrew from Trixie. Also, one more thing. Yeah? Trixie asked without looking up. There was an explosion of pain on the side of Trixie's mouth as he saw stars. The unicorn stumbled a little, falling around into a daze. After millions of years, or maybe seconds, Trixie couldn't tell, the world stopped spinning a mass of stellar objects and singing birds, and instead became a spinning quintet of raindrops. Raindrops, sigh? Or looking down at her. Open your mouth, the twirling quartet said. For whatever reason, Trixie obeyed them, and Pegasite leaned in to look down. Nothing except broken, they announced after a moment. Okay, I have a drink to finish. And with that, the raindrops sigh. Raindropson, we're off. Trixie closed her eyes and rubbed her jaw with her hoof. She resolved to, once he was certain there was no short-term memory damage, make sure never to get into a situation where raindrops needed to keep that particular promise ever again.